welcome everyone. We are concluding our study in the Odyssey. Despite what it says behind me here, we're going to begin in chapter 13, not chapter 14. The encounter between Odysseus and Athena. Remember that Odysseus has been taken back from the place wherever the Phaeacians reside, which is now no longer accessible to human beings at all because the gods to placate Poseidon have got rid of it. There's no way of going from the place where Odysseus was to the mortal world ever again. That was Zeus's way of appeasing his angry brother. And we have the encounter between Odysseus and Athena. And I went over this with you, the encounter between them, did I not? If I refresh my memory, I did, right? Yeah. And the fact that she in Odysseus saw a man like herself, and he tried to trick her immediately. And she informs him of where he is because he's uncertain at this point. He's regularly disoriented. And wisdom leads him back to his homeland of Achaea, and he doesn't recognize her. She knows who he is. He tries to deceive her. She catches him in this, and he keeps on tricking. And this is what makes her particularly love her. That is wisdom, is that he keeps on acting in a wise fashion. So there's something about the trickster and about deceit as a technique of achieving your outcome, which is particularly prized here. And it reflects the Greeks' view in general of the arts as a way of cultivating human nature, which we to this day do actually adhere to if we don't agree with the main feature of it, which strikes us, is that he regularly lies. And Athena regularly lies. And she seems to be very happy with the fact that he's lying and she's lying. And this will strike a Christian very strongly because we have grown up in an understanding of wisdom connected to the truth, largely because of Christian teaching. Because Jesus Christ, who's the wisdom of God, is also the way, the truth, and the life. So there's a if not the same thing, there's certainly a compatibility, if not a requirement, that wisdom comport with truthfulness. And so we're told in addition that God never lies in Scripture. So again, the idea that one of the gods is lying and that this is wisdom is going to really not meet a favorable response among Christians. All the same, there are features of this portrait of wisdom which are going to seem very familiar to us if we've read Scripture at all. I suggested that the book of Proverbs was a really useful place to look. There's all sorts of illustrations that seem to suggest a compatibility here, among other things, that wisdom is personified as a woman. And the Proverbs wife at the end of that seems like a depiction of someone a lot like Penelope. So what we have in this epic is a teaching in something that is delightful to the audience and moves the audience to act in a way much like they see portrayed in Odysseus and Penelope and Telemachus and Athena, for that matter. So we're walking in the ways of wisdom. Remember the Psalms, the first Psalm, the Wisdom Psalm, talks about the ways of wisdom as opposed to the ways of folly. So this is very near and clear to biblical teaching, in some ways the emphasis on wisdom, but the divergence is that the Greek tradition clearly is going to permit lying as a path of wisdom. That's going to prove a real problem for Socrates and Plato and the philosophical tradition, because there's a moral failure in lying and in deception and in all sorts of other immoral acts, which we'll see characteristic of the gods. But he lies to her and she likes it. She likes it not because she likes being lied to, but because it shows how dedicated he is to her. that is to the way in which wisdom herself operates. So the portrait of wisdom is a little bit vexing, troubling to us, but it is consistently portrayed in this. The other biblical text that I thought probably bears some sort of scrutiny on your part is the study of the account of Abraham and the life of Abraham and the way in which Abraham operates. The story of Abraham is very much of a domestic epic like this. This is a domestic epic as much as anything. We begin in the house of Odysseus. He's not there. He needs to get back. He can't get back. The gods are against him. And he finds ways in order to get back. But there's a long series of trials and tribulations along the way. And God accompanies him throughout. Same thing with Abraham. There's significant differences as well, obviously as well. The nature of the God concerned, chiefly. And the character of the God and what it takes to, what on earth was that? Oh, okay. To please God and all sorts of other things. But Abraham, the man of faith, is the archetypal figure referred to even in the book of Romans. So it's a significant figure, and Odysseus has some analogies to that that I think are worthy of at least consideration. So she reveals herself to him and tells Odysseus that even though he did not perceive her presence, she has always been with him, even in the midst of her apparent absence. Very much the sort of thing that God says to his saints in the Psalms and elsewhere. So in the midst of the suffering and the apparent abandonment by God of the biblical hero, he is ever present. Psalm 23 reflects that. Right? Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You made me lie down in the presence of my enemies. He's always there, even in the presence of his enemies. That sense of the enduring fidelity of God to his favored person we also see here. And Athena again declares something of that. But let me move forward here. I said that in chapter 14 and onward, we were going to get a series of the chief failing of Odysseus up to this point we saw in the encounter with Polyphemus the Cyclops. He revealed his name. He revealed his identity. He was truthful for once. He did it out of anger, outrage. Who wouldn't be outraged and angered? He's just defied the rules of hospitality, has shown no deference to the gods whatsoever. He's a very bad character. Everything about Polyphemus is bad and evil. And Odysseus is outraged that somebody can act with impunity in this way. And he reveals that the man that had been prophesied to Polyphemus would one day blind him. His name was Odysseus. That's me. You're right. Prophecy came true. I did actually blind you. I am Odysseus, sacker of cities. I did come from Achaea. I'm the son of Laertes, all that. So he reveals not only his name, but his postal code. This is me. This is where you can find me, right? You know who I am now. Yes. Unfortunately, this is the son of Poseidon, so this creates all manner of problems. Very foolish. Identified you to your location. Don't do this, hero. Don't let your enemies know where your vulnerabilities lie. Don't bring the fight close to home. The fight doesn't happen in the home. The fight happens out here. Go into the battlefield. Don't bring the fight into the home. Well, he's invited the fight into his home, and Poseidon has wrecked his house. His household is disrupted. It's been shaken. Just like Poseidon shakes the earth, he shakes Odysseus' whole household, and it is upside down. We have an upside down world. If the Odyssey is about justice and the restoration of justice, Ithaca represents a place that has been turned upside down in which injustice reigns. The suitors rule his house. His wife is besieged by men who are bad men who want to marry her and take away his whole estate and then kill his son. This is very much, again, biblical parables talk about this sort of scenario as well. They want to kill the owner, but they're going to go settle for his son, and they will kill the son. So if you want to see parallels there, that story is certainly, I wonder if that's in Jesus' mind when he tells the tale as well. I don't know. I just note the comparison is obvious there. At any rate, the world of the suitors is the world of Achaea, and Odysseus, to be the hero of wisdom and virtue and justice that he is famed to be and fated to be, has to come back home and rectify the injustice, not just in the war in Troy. He needs to restore peace back home. And Ithaca, when he comes back, is an inverted world. Things have become violent and disordered. Symbols of the reign of Poseidon in the sea, in his own kingdom. And there is a great deal of dramatic irony in the advice or the command that Athena gives to Odysseus. You have to go back incognito. Go back in the guise of a beggar. Because if they recognize you, you will not be able to achieve your mission. You have to come in and not be recognized. You have to come in by stealth. And as you do that, you need to scrutinize the character of the people that you've left behind. Who has been faithful and who is good that remains, and who needs to be taken out. The injustice needs to be purged from your kingdom. The gods will not tolerate it. The gods stand for justice. Injustice marks your whole kingdom, and you, the king and judge of Ithaca, has to do this. You have to be the instrument. Remember, in our Western democracies, we separate the branches. The judicial branch of the courts and so forth are separate from the legislative branch and from the administrative branch. So the president is not the head of the Supreme Court. Neither is the Prime Minister of Canada. He's not the head of the Supreme Court. Neither is the head of the Parliament. We separate powers in order that there be checks and balances on powers and that there not be disorder. And this follows, incidentally, this is following the recommendations that we get directly out of the Old Testament. When Moses leads the people into the promised land, he separates powers. There's a king, but there's also schools and courts, and there are judges, and it's not just the king. Up until that point, it tends to be the case, and it is the case in most nations of the world, that the king is the judge and will execute judgment. It's his job, in fact. So in the absence of the king, there is no one to implement justice. And so injustice abounds, and it is a kingdom overgrown by weeds. It's like a garden that is now unweeded, and the weeds are threatening to choke out the good plants that grew in that soil. All sorts of, this is something that Shakespeare in his plays talks about regularly. He compares kingdoms to gardens, the king to a gardener, his task to weed and to cultivate. It's the commandment given to Adam and Eve in the garden: be fruitful and multiply, fill and subdue the earth. Filling and subduing means cultivating. It's the cultural mandate. You can't fulfill the cultural mandate if you aren't fruitful yourself. You have to be productive. You have to produce offspring, and they will assist you in doing the work of gardening. And that means, culturally speaking, it doesn't mean just doing gardening. It means making what's fruitful more fruitful. It's not just pruning the weeds. Because you can take a good tree and you can make a better tree by grafting in a twig from another type of fruit, and then the two types marry together and they make a more tasty fruit tree. Same thing with farm animals. You can make them produce more milk, more fruitful, eat certain types of crops and so forth. You can do this with animals. It's called agriculture. So there's a cultivation aspect that's right there in the Dominion mandate, the cultural mandate, which is I see as a template for education as well, Christian education. My students have good plants and weeds in their nature. The weed is called sin. The weeds have to be pruned and held back and restrained and bound, and the student has to do this themselves. And then the good things need to be cultivated and flourish. The light needs to be, you have to nourish them, you have to give them good light, you have to subject them, and those things will then grow within a person. They have to take charge of that for themselves. But you give good material, you keep away the bad material, you subdue the aspects of your nature that are at war with the truth and with beauty and goodness and justice. You have to restrain those as the teacher, and then the student has to restrain that in himself or herself. And that's how you cultivate a person. You cultivate people. And then they become cultured. The aim of culture is to be more Christ-like. It's not just to be praised for knowing Shakespeare's works. It's to be a more Christ-like person, because he is the ultimate role model that we're aiming for here, right? Not Odysseus. But Odysseus is functioning the same way here. He is the ideal role model for the Greek audience. Be like Odysseus, it says. Not for us, but for the audience here. So Odysseus comes back, and he has to come back in the guise of a beggar. And there are complications that arise in the scenes, because even though he's told not to give away his appearance, there are things that come up along the way that give away his appearance, despite his best efforts. And those are really interesting scenes. I'll look at some of those here. But as he comes back in the beggar's guise, he starts with the lowliest character in the kingdom. Now, this shows how upside down his world has become, because he doesn't go to the king. Remember, with the Phaeacians, he went to Alcinous, the king. The king's daughter took him in. He goes directly to the head of the country and expects to be treated well and is treated well. He can't do that here. He begins by going to the lowest of all of the figures that he will meet on the social rank, and that is a man by the name of Eumaeus, Eumaios, and he is a swineherd, pig farmer. Now, pig farming in Greek thought is not the same as it would be in Jewish thought. It's not an unclean animal, as in ceremonially unclean. You can't eat pigs. The Greeks are happy to eat pork. That's not the issue. It's that pigs are rather smelly, and they are omnivores. They eat everything, including you, by the way. They'll knock you down and eat you. You don't think I'm not joking. Pigs are, and they're really smart. Pigs are smart, and they'll act, and there's a leader amongst the pigs as well. You gotta keep the pigs, but if you go down, you fall down, watch out, because they'll eat you. You don't believe me? Talk to a pig farmer. And if you're afraid of them, they'll smell the fear. And then, watch out. Dangerous animals in that sense. That's not why he's on the bottom of the social. It's because, they're eating in their muck, in the manure, all sorts of things. Anyway, bottom of the social order is the main point here. So he goes to the bottom, and that symbolizes how bad the kingdom has become. He no longer goes to the top of the social rank, he goes to the bottom. And what does he find at the bottom? Well, great irony, he finds that the pig farmer is the most admirable and noble of all the people in his kingdom. And so Eumaeus is going to receive a special praise from Homer for this, because the least noble in terms of rank is the most noble in terms of character. And Homer loves him for this and praises him for this. And the good thing is that he also symbolizes the fact that however bad Odysseus' kingdom has become, it's not wholly rotten through. There's still a few good characters left, not many. His wife and his son being two, but also this character of Eumaeus. And what we learn about Eumaeus is that he had once been a king's son himself. So this is chapter 14, line 25, and so forth. And when the dogs caught sight of Odysseus, they ran at him with a great outcry. And Odysseus prudently sat down on the ground. Why prudently? Because they might attack him, but he's presenting himself as non-threat. He understands the situation here. I'm not sure I would have done that. I certainly wouldn't have run. You don't run away from dogs that are barking and coming at you. You incite them to, this is the hunt instinct at that point. When you run, they're like, okay, good. We like this game. And these are animals there to protect. So that, everything in them is triggered by this. He stands his ground. In fact, he sits down. And there, beside his own steading, he might have endured a shameful mauling, but the swine. So why is he prudent then? He's testing the swineherd. This is really interesting. By sitting down, the prudence isn't towards the dogs. It's to test the swineherd. What's he going to do? Because the dogs will obey the swineherd's command here. And he's testing him by making himself vulnerable to the possibility of being mauled here. But the swineherd, quick and light on his feet, came hurrying to him across the porch and let fall from his hand the shoe he was holding. He shouted at the dogs and scared them in every direction, with volleyed showers of stones, and spoke then to his own master, not knowing that it's his master. Old sir, the dogs were suddenly on you and would have savaged you badly. So you would have covered me with shame. But already there are other pains and sorrows the gods have bestowed on me. For here I sit, mourning and grieving, away for my godlike master, and carefully raises fattened pigs for others to eat, while he, in need of finding some sustenance, wanders some city or countryside of alien speaking people. In other words, he's like the prodigal son. So again, moral inversion. How morally inverted? The man who is righteous is being treated as if he were a prodigal, wandering far away. So again, the depiction here, just compared to the biblical stories that give accounting of righteousness and unrighteousness, and you can see that they very much are in sync with the portrait here. And Odysseus is being treated as if he were unrighteous, and he is the exact opposite. But Eumaeus accounts for this in his own speech. So come, old sir, along to my shelter. Remember, Athena has cloaked him so that he looks like a beggar. The clothes, he's made him stoop over so he doesn't look so strong, so powerful, so, capable, so that he fits here. Later on, when she wants him to look good, she'll do the exact opposite. She'll clean him up and he'll be shining, and suddenly people are like, where did this guy come from? But for now, she clothes him, and the swineherd treats him with hospitality. Come to my shelter that you may first be filled to contentment with food and wine. Then tell me where you came from and about the sorrows you've been suffering. That order, which is consistent with hospitality. First, have something to eat, have something to drink, put your feet up. Then tell me about yourself. And then tell me about your sorrows. Only then, that ordering. It's not, tell me who you are first before I show you hospitality. It's, I will treat you royally first. So spoke the noble swineherd and led the way to the shelter, brought him in, seated on a brushwood piled up beneath, spread out the hide of a hairy wild goat from his own bed, thick and great, and Odysseus was happy at how he received him, and spoke a word and named him, saying, May Zeus, stranger, and the other gods everlastingly grant you all you desire the most, for you have received me heartily. And then, O swineherd Eumaeus, you said to him in answer. This phrase here, O swineherd Eumaeus, whose perspective is, who's speaking here? Whose perspective is in line 55? Yes, Homer. Suddenly we're aware Homer's there. He's telling the narrative. We don't know Homer's present. But he interjects, and suddenly we're aware Homer's there, and he joins Odysseus in the praise of this swineherd. He can't help himself. He's so pleased that a man so unrewarded in life for virtue is acting in a virtuous manner. He's so moved by the fact that he expects no reward and still does the right thing that he has to cry out and speak to him. He jumps out onto the page. You will find later epic poets will use the same thing. You'll forget that the epic writer's telling the tale because we're just following the tale, and then suddenly we're aware that the author is interjecting to speak to us. It's a special praise. Yes.
I know he does this a couple of times.
He does.
I don't remember if he does it with any other character.
No, I don't think so. So Eumaeus is given very special attention. And it's almost like the hero of the Odyssey is Eumaeus. It's that pronounced. I mean, it isn't. Odysseus is the hero. But here we get a man who has no earthly reward for his wonderful character, but Homer gives him the praise. And surely the gods do in some way. So in some sense, it speaks to the fact that the gods not only see those at the top, but at the bottom. There's justice everywhere. Even if it's not received in this life, there is some measure of that. And his name reflects that here as well. Does it say anything about this in the note? I hesitate to click on this, but it'll take me away from it. Oh, the swineherd of Odysseus. Okay, that's wholly unhelpful. Oh no. What did I do? No. That's what I get for clicking on it. What does it say about Eumaeus? The swineherd of Odysseus. No kidding. Thank you for that. Shows him hospitality and shows his loyalty to Eumaeus. What we find here, among other things, is that remember we began the story with Telemachus growing up without a father? And Mentor had to show up to teach him how to act like an older man and take him under his wing. Says, okay, I think you need to go away from here for a while. Go find out about your father and so forth. Gives him sage advice, acts like an older mentor. We find out that actually this is not the only one who's brought up Telemachus, but Eumaeus. Eumaeus treated Telemachus like his own son. In the absence of his father, this man who was looking after the pigs also looked after the king's son. When nobody else looked after him, he did. He's acted like a mentor. Didn't have the king's wealth, didn't have the king's power, but was a mature male character. Took him under his wing. Hugely important to the man's life. How much more could he have done for Odysseus than this? He made sure his son didn't grow up not knowing how to be a man. So there's a close bond between the servant and the master here, and a love between them, which is not characteristic of master-servant relationships per se, but could be. Remember, in the ancient world, we have a very bad view of slavery for obvious reasons and so forth. There's no reason why masters can't treat their servants well. And vice versa, that servants won't love their masters. There's all sorts of examples in scripture of this and elsewhere. And regularly in ancient Roman, Greek world, the main teachers of the children are slaves. And they're valued members of the household. So they're basically family members. They happen to be slaves because they don't have their freedom, yes, but they are treated as people that we're entrusting the education of our children to. How are we going to want to treat those people well? Oh, yes, you are. So it just needs to be stated in this. And he did do this with Odysseus. So extraordinarily important role that Eumaeus plays in Odysseus's life. And we need to spend some time on that just to, because Homer does. He spends a great deal of time looking at Eumaeus, a seemingly minor character, when he comes back. And Odysseus is testing him, and yet we find that Eumaeus is nonetheless despairing. He doesn't think his master is ever going to come home. Old sir, I will never pay you that gift for good news, nor will Odysseus come to this house again. Be easy and drink your wine. We will think of other matters. Do not then keep on reminding me of this, for the heart within me grieves whenever anyone speaks of my gracious master. So we will let your oath alone. but I hope that Odysseus will come back as I wish, and as Penelope wishes, and Laertes the old man too, and godlike Telemachus. But now I grieve unforgettingly for Telemachus, the son born to Odysseus, the god made him grow like a young tree. And I thought he would be among the men, one not inferior to his dear father, admirable for build and beauty, but some immortal upset the balanced mind within him, or else it was some man, he went after news of his father, to Pelos the sacrosanct. He became unbalanced in his views. He left. Now, what he doesn't realize is that the immortal that upset the balanced mind within him, that sent him, was Athena, who was the goddess of wisdom that drove him away. He doesn't understand that. But they're worried. He is worried because when he comes home, he knows that the suitors are plotting to kill him. That was back in books 3, 4. They plan, okay, he's gone away. And before he left, he spoke in a pretty insolent and brave manner, and we can't let that go unrewarded. We're going to kill him when he comes back. So that's the intent. Not just they will greet Odysseus the way that Agamemnon was treated, namely kill him. They're also going to treat his son. He's done. But come, sir, recite me your tale of sorrows. Tell me truly, what man are you and whence? Where is your city, your parents? What kind of ship? How did the sailors bring you? What men do they claim that they are? For I do not think you could have traveled on country. Well, then he comes up with a cock and bull story. Claims to be a veteran of Troy, however, and knowing something about what happened there, came in grief to Egypt. Claims to have bad news about Odysseus and so forth, and yet says that Odysseus is on his way back. It's a bit like Lewis does this in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Aslan's on the move. He's coming back. Now he is the one who tells, and he is Aslan, Odysseus here. He's the one coming back, and he acts in the guise of the beggar like somebody that's telling that he's coming back. He knows he's coming back. In fact, it can't be stopped, although they're going to try and stop him. There's this suspense about this. And as he tells this story, Eumaeus receives it with extreme skepticism, still treats him well, and gives him a cloak, a mantle, tells another story about Troy. Eumaeus gives Odysseus his bed, and he goes to sleep with the pigs. Again, character of the man. Obviously, these aren't the pigs that are going to eat him when he lies down. I don't think he's with the pigs. He's beside the pigs in them, right? And he goes to sleep, sheltered from the north wind. So very much, remember when he first lands with the Phaeacians, he covers himself up with leaves just to keep his life alive. It's like a spark, an ember that's about to be blown out by the cold wind and so forth. Now he's back home, and he is under the covers of Eumaeus in a bed. Now it's the lowest bed in the whole kingdom, but it's still a bed. And Athena is paving the way now for Telemachus to come back, because the father's come back. Now the son is going to come back, and she is leading him, Telemachus, to do so. Chapter 15. Go ask Menelaus, who's the Spartan king, brother of Agamemnon, how to get back. And they do. And numerous people speak to him. He gets gifts given to him. He sees Helen of Troy shining among women. She gives him things. A word of Hephaestus, the blacksmith of the gods, gives him all sorts of gifts and reads a portent of what will come. The portent is here. An eagle carrying in his talons a great white goose he had caught tame from the yard, and all of the men and women with stopped breath followed his flight. But the eagle, as he approached them, shot by on the right before the chariot, and they, seeing, were filled with joy, and the hearts in all of them were softened. And they speak, and they see what? They see Odysseus coming home like the eagle to kill the goose. geese being the suitors. We're going to find that Penelope has another such dream later on. Doing what in the ancient world they call augury, Augury, which is reading the flight of birds and predicting the future on the basis of this. It's a dream that comes from this. It's prophetic, etc. Avoid Nestor. He goes back, comes back, taken by Telemachus. And then we hear the life story of Eumaeus. Then the life story of Eumaeus is that Eumaeus was once the son of a king himself. And this is what's particularly extraordinary about Eumaeus. Not only does he behave in the absence of his master in an exemplary fashion, he himself was once a king's son, and he was raised by Odysseus as if he were his own son. So he's doing what was done to him first. So Odysseus killed his father, took him as and adopted him as his son, but treated him very well, as if he were in his own family. Very common in the ancient world, by the way. And tells him the story of how he came there, was once a king's son, chapter 15, 370 and onwards, and yet came to be enslaved, but he was enslaved by a master who was so gracious and kind that he could not have been happier or more thankful, because he's treated royally by a royal figure, even though he's a slave. So again, it's quid pro quo. The king treated the slave like a son, so the slave will treat the king's son like his own and like a king. There's a symmetry, there's justice in this. He understands. There's a bond between them that's unbreakable. He's not thinking of his own self-interest. So admirable. We get a fully admirable picture of Odysseus thereby. Almost in the lowest figure in the kingdom reflects the justice of the man when he reigned. That's how just Odysseus was. You have to see, it's not just about Eumaeus, it's about how just Odysseus was, that even a man who was the lowest in the kingdom is faithful to him when everyone else isn't. Sold by a treacherous nurse, arrives with it, and let me go onward to 16 here. So they sit by the fire, they're pasturing pigs, and he notices, and this is the section I wanted to talk about in relation to the revelation of identity here. There's dogs, and they're fawning as he enters, and above them they hear the loud noise of footsteps, and he says, Eumaeus, someone is on his way here who is truly one of yours, or else well known, since the dogs are not barking, but fawning about him, and I can hear the thud of his footsteps. What do they hear? They hear Telemachus coming back. The dogs know. Now, this is already dramatic foreshadowing. The dogs know what people don't know. They hear things, they smell things, they see things that escape the notice of human beings. They're more discerning in many ways. And they're loyal, famously loyal dogs. And so they are also a symbol of the wisdom and the righteousness of Odysseus's reign, the dogs themselves. So the lowest members of the kingdom that he has, his swineherd and his dogs, are aware of their master. They are delighted with this. Telemachus greets him, and Telemachus kisses the swineherd as if he had escaped dying. In a burst of weeping, spoke to him in winged words. You have come, Telemachus, sweet light. I thought I would never see you again when you'd gone on the ship to Pylos, but now come into the house, dear child, so that I can pleasure my heart with looking at you again when you're inside. For you do not come very often in the estate and the herdsman, but you stay in town, since now it seems you are even minded to face the deadly company of the lordly suitors. Eumaeus is afraid. You're growing up, you're exposing yourself to danger. He's an older man. He doesn't want him to do this. He loves this boy like his own son. Then the thoughtful Telemachus made an answer. So it shall be, my father. calls him my father. In the midst of the stranger who happens to be his father. Calls Eumaeus the father, because that's how he's treated him. But it was for your sake I came here, to look upon you with my eyes and to hear a word from you, whether my mother endures still in the halls, or whether some other man has married her, and the bed of Odysseus lies forlorn of sleepers with spider's web growing upon it. So note that what Telemachus is doing is what Odysseus does. He doesn't go through the front door, he comes through the back door. I want to find out what I'm getting into before I go there. I could just come in and say, hey, Mom, I'm home. He's learned that that's not the best way to do everything. I'm going to come in through the servant's entrance. Thank you very much. And I'll ask you, whom I trust, what's going on there before I run into it full frontal and expose myself. And finds out that his mother is in fact faithful and weeping, just like Odysseus was when we first met him in book 5. Full of sorrow. His wife is just like he was. The two figures of wisdom are full of weeping. And Odysseus, observing all of this, arises from his seat, yields him his place as he entered, but Telemachus from the other side checked him and said, no, sit, my friend, and we shall find us another seat here in our shelter. The man is here who will lay it for us. He spoke. And Odysseus is looking at his son. You can only imagine, it's been 20 years, he's never seen his son. Now he looks at his son, he sees himself. Because he's 20, he's grown the size of a man. Looks like himself, except Odysseus, being disguised, is not recognizable as that. But he sees his son without disguise. And he has to restrain the desire then to say, it's me. To embrace his son. At last, Telemachus questioned the noble swineherd, Father, where did this stranger come from? How did the sailors bring him here? And the swineherd, I'll relate the whole story. And then he gives the story that Odysseus told him, which is a lie. Goes to Penelope. And then Odysseus says this. I shall go with news to wretched Laertes, for while he was so greatly grieved for Odysseus, yet would look after his farm, and with the thralls in his household, that is the slaves, would eat and drink wherever the spirit was urgent with him. But now, since he went away in the ship to Pylos, they say that he, that is Odysseus' father, has not eaten in this way, nor drunk anything, nor looked to his farm, but always in lamentation and mourning, sits grieving, and the flesh on his bones is wasting from him. A bit like the father in the story of the prodigal son. He just sits there in the window, looking. He won't leave. He's waiting. He can't wait for his son to come back. His grandson. He's lost his son already. Now his grandson's gone. He sits there and he won't eat, he won't drink, he won't be comforted, he weeps. He sits there and waits. So again, these pictures of grief throughout Odysseus' household. And then the thoughtful, but when they do see each other, they don't run like you would get in this parable of the prodigal son. The father doesn't come running out. Here the father sits there and pretends that he does not even know what's happening. He has to restrain every aspect of every fiber of his being is straining against the desire to tell and reveal himself. Though it hurts the more, we shall leave him for all our sorrow. So they want to run to grandpa. They want to run to him. He's dying. We can't go to him. He's going to have to suffer. The old man is going to have to endure. Because if we reveal who we are, we're all done. The suitors will kill us all. So this self-restraint, one of the things that men most need to learn. You can't have virtuous men who will not restrain themselves. If they won't be restrained by themselves, they will have to be restrained by other people, and that's through military means. Every culture that wants to educate its young has to teach them to master themselves. It says in Proverbs, the man who controls his tongue can rule a city. Same thing in James. Guard your tongue. Right? Talks about it being like, if you unleash it, it's like the pit of hell, like fire. Again, look at Proverbs, talks in the same way. You have to control yourself. Don't let your passions rule over you. So Athena speaks then to him and says to him, okay, all right, now you can tell him. Now you can tell Telemachus who you are. You've tested him. He's come back. He has shown that he is restrained. He's shown that he won't run to grandpa. He's going to restrain his desires to be like a little boy and run to comfort grandpa because he feels so badly for him. He's now learned enough. Now he can be like you. The two of you can stand side by side. I'm done with mentoring him. Speaks to Odysseus, saying, son of Laertes and seed of Zeus, resourceful Odysseus, it's time now to tell your son the story. No longer hide it, so that contriving death and doom for the suitors, you too may go to the glorious city. I myself shall not be long absent from you in my eagerness for the fighting. Okay, so now the mentor is done, and Odysseus has a son, and now the two of them will go after the suitors. So her job of mentoring is finished. He is the finished article. He is ready to act like a man. He's shown that he can restrain himself. Before he had no self-control, now he has it. Again, the Greeks are teaching us, the audience, something about being a man. Can you act in a way that will check your passions in public under extreme duress? If you can't, then you're not ready to act like a man. Not bragging, not exhibiting physical strength, exhibiting self-control. That's manliness. And it takes a type of bravery, right? A type of bravery to master yourself in this way. And trust in the gods also, right? There's a belief that there's a reward for self-restraint. People that don't believe that there is a God or gods will not restrain themselves because they think, if I don't execute justice right now, it won't happen. I have to take justice into my own hands. But if you believe that there's a God who is just and will execute justice in his time, you can restrain yourself and wait. That's character. Very hard lesson. Necessary. So Athena speaks, taps him, and the appearance of Odysseus totally transforms. So she taps him on the shoulder, and then suddenly he doesn't look like an old man. His gray beard goes black, and he comes back, and Odysseus' son Telemachus can't even believe who he is, and he's afraid that this is actually a god because he's so different and so much more impressive. And says this, surely you've changed, my friend, from what you were formerly. Your skin is no longer as it was. You have other clothing. Surely you are one of the gods who hold the high heaven. Be gracious then. So we shall give you favored offerings and golden gifts that have been well wrought. Only be merciful. Then in turn, long-suffering great Odysseus. What is the mark of Odysseus's character? It's that his self-restraint is like no other man's. No one restrains themselves more than Odysseus. No one has been tried more. No one has suffered more. No one is more patient. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 talks about suffering being God's tool for creating character. And there's a whole list of things. Remember that in Christian teaching, suffering, although the world sees it as the visitation of evil, suffering is a tool for God's purposes. Remember, Jesus, who knew no sin, suffered to teach him, it says in Hebrews. Him who was perfect, he made to suffer. Ultimately, the passion of the cross, the suffering on the cross. So don't think that if you're suffering in some way that God has abandoned you. Understand that it's a sign that God loves you and is using that for your character, for your good, for your maturity. Very hard lesson, but consistent. All wisdom literature speaks of it. Christian theology reflects it. No, I'm not a god. Why liken me to the immortals? But I am your father, for whose sake you are always grieving as you look for violence from others and endure hardships. So he spoke and kissed his son, and the tears running down his cheeks splashed on the ground. So now he lets go of the waterworks. Until now he was always unyielding. But Telemachus, for he did not yet believe that this was his father, spoke to him once more. Now this is typical. Shows what a good character Telemachus is. Doesn't believe a word. You're lying. This is a wise boy, because they can be deceived. Remember, the gods are always disguising themselves. You can peer. Test. Never let your guard down. No, you are not Odysseus, my father, but some divinity beguiles me for that, so that I must grieve the more and be sorry. For no man who is mortal could ever be so contrived it by his own mind alone, not unless some immortal descending on him in person were lightly to make him a young or an old man. For even now you were an old man in unseemly clothing, but now you resemble one of the gods. And resourceful Odysseus spoke in turn and answered him, Telemachus, it does not become you to wonder too much at your own father when he's here, nor doubt him. No other Odysseus than I will ever come back to you. But here I am, and I am as you see me, and after hardships and suffering much I have come in the 20th year back to my own country. But here you see the work of Athena, that is the transformation. That's why. That's what you see. Yes, you do see the work of a god. It was Athena, the giver of plunder, who turns me into whatever she pleases. Since she can do this, and now she will make me look like a beggar, but then the next time like a young man, and wearing splendid clothes on my body, it's a light thing for the gods to hold by heaven to glorify any mortal man or else to degrade him. So he spoke. And now he cries and they make their plans together. So the plans then are to deal with the suitors. What are we going to do? And they go back among the suitors, and what we shift guys, and the suitors now talk about what they're going to do to Telemachus when he gets back. And it's basically, we're going to kill him. Long story short. And Eumaeus comes amongst them, he gets abused, etc. Then in 17, the two of them come back to the city, but they come back separately, different paths. Odysseus looking like a beggar. By the way, he's going to get beat up by another beggar, or rather there's going to be a fight. A beggar challenges him. A little pecking order here. I'm the lowest here, but I'm begging for the table scraps, and if you come here, you're going to take away some of my food. So I'm going to show you who's at the bottom of the pecking order here with a little fist fight. And and Odysseus, unfortunately, hits him a little bit too hard. And the suitor's like, whoa, what the old man, what on earth? And it's like, yeah, maybe that was a little bit too much. So possible moment of revelation there when he fights him. And Penelope hears of his travels and all that. There's a lot of deceitful lying going back and forth on this. But we find the other recognition scene here. The dog, the old dog Argos. This is a touching story. 17. And Odysseus says, what a wonderful house it is, Odysseus's. And asks him about the nature of this dog. Talks about how well made it has been, how good the food is. And then Odysseus sees that there is a dog. Where's the dog? Where is the line here? $3.17, is that right? Okay. He sees a dog on top of a manure heap. And the name of the dog is Argos, all covered with dog ticks. So the dog, who is the king's dog, is lying on a pile of manure being eaten by ticks himself. Now, as he perceived that Odysseus had come close to him, he wagged his tail and laid both his ears back. You know what a dog does when they recognize the master's come home. He can't even get up, he's so weak. But the ears prick up and the tail wags, and he recognizes the master's voice. 20 years. Never seen him, heard him, whatever. But remembers as a little puppy when he left. When he left, he was a puppy. Comes back, instant identification. Only he now no longer had the strength to move any closer to his master, who, watching him from a distance without Eumaeus noticing, secretly wiped a tear away and said to him, Eumaeus, remember the weeping of the suitors? He had to lift the thing because he was hearing the story about the Trojan heroes, and he was trying to conceal who he was. Now he's wiping the tear, because the tear is what reveals him as somebody other than just a stranger. He doesn't want that to happen. He's got to wipe it away, because the dog identifies him, and he identifies himself as Odysseus by weeping. Can't stop it. This is amazing. This dog that lies in the dunghill, the splendid shape of him is splendid, and yet I cannot be certain whether he had the running speed to go with his beater, or is just one of the kind of table dogs that gentlemen keep, and is only for show that their masters care for them. Then, O swineherd Eumaeus, Homer again praising him, you said to him in answer, this is true, is the dog of a man who perished far away, if he were such in build and performance as when Odysseus left him behind when he went to Ilion. Soon you would see his speed and his strength for yourself. Never could any wild animal in the profound depths of the forest escape once he pursued. He was very clever at tracking, but now he's in bad times. His master, far from his country, has perished, and the women are careless and do not look after him. And serving men, when their masters are no longer about to make them work, are no longer willing to do their rightful duties. Injustice abounds. For Zeus of the wide brows takes away one half of the virtue from a man once the day of slavery closes upon him. An indictment of slavery in relation to a man's virtue. This is why you don't want to be a slave. You lose something of your self-respect, something of your manliness, your virtue, etc. So he spoke and went into the strongly settled palace, and he went on and strode grimly onto the great hall in the haughty suitors. But the doom of dark death now closed over the dog Argos, when after 19 years had gone by, he had seen Odysseus. So the dog waits, like who? Odysseus' father, waiting for the son. He's pining away on the dunghill of life, being eaten by fleas. All of these symbols of, like the suitors, symbols of injustice, symbols of suffering of trial. He waits till his master comes home, hears his voice, and dies. His life is complete. He dies happy. Odysseus is home. He begs from the suitors. The suitors are haughty, terrible to them. One of them strikes him. Very inhospitable. Shows what a terrible place Ithaca's become. Scolded by others. Eumaeus goes and tells Penelope that there's a stranger there and an unknown guest. Remember, Eumaeus has no idea who Odysseus is at this point. And they leave him there in the palace. Now, in 17, he's, as I say, challenged by another beggar to a fight. They do fight, and as I say, Odysseus basically hits him so hard that he reveals himself, knocks him out with one punch. Not good. Athena working here and behind the scenes, and then hints at a marriage here. And the marriage is going to work like this. And there's great dramatic irony built up in these passages. So in the process of, remember, the plan here is to defeat the suitors. Odysseus, Telemachus, they plan on defeating the suitors and doing so in disguise. Now, in the process, they're identified by some. The one we've already seen is the character of Argos the dog, that's not much of a threat. But the bigger and more significant one is here in 19, and this is, I'll pick it up at 420, the famous passage in which Odysseus has his feet washed by his maid, Eurycleia. Chapter 19, line 374 and onwards. And this is just typical hospitality. You wash the feet, wash the hands of your person you're being hospitable to. And she comments on his feet. Boy, your feet look a lot like my master's feet used to look. And you look a lot like my master used to look. Oh yeah, old lady, lots of people have commented on that. And she buys it more or less. They say, we two are very similar each to each, as you yourself noticed and tell me. So he spoke, and the old woman took up the shining basin she used for foot washing, poured in a great deal of water, the cold first, and then added the hot to it. And now Odysseus is sitting there, and suddenly he remembers something about himself which he'd forgotten. He just hadn't thought about it. When she pulls his feet out and the garment on his legs pulls back, he's got a big scar on his leg, a huge scar. Who cares? The nurse knows where he got the scar. She will instantly identify him, not by the feet, but by the scar. You might have feet like another man, you might have legs like another man, but you've got the exact same scar in the exact same place, and I know how that scar came about. So here's the problem. What reveals him is a sign of his suffering, but it's not his present suffering, it's his past suffering. That's part of his identity as well. So again, when you think about the suffering in your life, don't think that it is contradicting your identity. It might be a part of your identity. It is a part of your identity. You don't have to chase the scars, by the way. The scars will come to you. But she comes and washes her Lord, and at once she recognized that scar, which once a boar, the boar with his white tusk, had inflicted him when he went to Parnassus to Autolycus and his children. This was his mother's noble father, Autolycus was. This was Odysseus's mother's father, Autolycus. He goes to visit him. Autolycus is a trickster, a shyster, just like Odysseus. And he's going on a hunting party. Now, when he goes on a hunting party, comes across a boar. When I say a boar, I'm not talking about the pigs that you feed and I said are threatening to eat you. I'm talking about another order of magnitude creature. I'm talking about something that grows to be 800 pounds and will hunt you. While you're hunting him, he was hunting you. He's got huge, sharp tusks. Hide in the thicket while you're hunting him, and they are really foul-tempered. They think that you're chasing them. They're going to sit in and hide themselves, and they're going to rush out, and they will run you through with their tusks, and then they'll eat you. We don't think about boars being fearsome creatures, but they are. They're hunted, and they're great meat, because at 800 pounds, that's a lot of meat. But this is a fierce foe. It's like a lion in that sense. And Odysseus, when he was hunting with his grandfather on his mother's side, grandpa who surpassed all men in thievery and the art of oath, and the god Hermes himself had endowed him, this is how he came about his name. And his name was, again, from the suffering. And he tells the story of how he came across this scar. So what he does is he's a young boy, and he's going out hunting for the first time with his grandfather. The hunting party has left him. Here's the boy on his own. He's got the spear, and the boar comes rushing out at him. He kills the boar, but the boar gets through his thigh the tusk and leaves. It goes right through him, and the scar is so deep. But he killed the boar, but he himself is left badly wounded, and now he bears the scar. And this is the scar that the nursemaid remembers. Right? And this is killing the boar. And the old woman, holding him in the palms of her hands, recognized this scar as she handled it. She let his foot go so that his leg, which was in the basin, fell free, and the bronze echoed because it clatters on the ground. And everybody looks. He's about to be revealed and betrayed. Accidentally. Who could blame the old woman? Pain and joy seized her at once, and both her eyes filled with tears, and the springing voice was held within her. She took the beard of Odysseus in her hands and spoke to him. Then, dear child, you are really Odysseus. I did not know you before, not until I had touched my lord all over. She spoke and turned her eyes towards Penelope, wishing to indicate to her beloved husband's presence, but Penelope was not able to look at him or perceive him because Athena has got her chin. Oh, look over here. Look this way. Penelope, like Athena, nope, don't look that way. It's not ready yet. So Athena's there helping him out. Odysseus grabs her by the throat and says, you better shut up or I'm going to kill you. Now, this is harsh. This is not, it's so good. I'm so glad to see you again. Oh, nice to see you too. No, but he needs to control the situation. Otherwise, all is lost. This would be extremely rough with her, I would say. And threatens her with death should she speak. And then she speaks a lot like Zeus did to Athena. My child, what sort of a word escaped your teeth's barrier? You know what strength is steady in me, and it will not give way at all. But I shall hold as stubborn as stone or iron, and put away in your heart this other thing that I tell you. If by your hands the god beats down the arrogant suitors, then I will give you the list of the women who at your place have been mutinous against you and tell you which are innocent. So I'm going to hold my tongue and I'm going to tell you which woman to take out. Does Odysseus trust her? He knows he must know her and she must know something about her. No, thank you very much. I'm going to test that for myself. Thank you. I'm not going to let you tell me which women should be killed because you're probably don't have very good character in that sense and you were a good nurse and whatever, but no, I'm not going to leave it up to you to decide this. I'm going to figure it out for myself. But really interesting exchange here. But again, it's Odysseus mastering the situation to protect his identity until it's time. So it seems particularly harsh. But this instance here is a famous, Odysseus' scar is a famous instance here of identity marker. Now, I'm not going to get through all of this. I'll do some of it next time, but I still have a few minutes left here. Let's come to the dream of the geese. This is Penelope's dream because this is about to instigate, now that this moment of possible identification has been circumvented, there is a vision here that comes to Penelope. The suitors want to marry her, remember. And Athena has inspired her to give a contest of revelation. Now, these sorts of instances happen in scripture as well, where there's going to be judgment. Think of Joseph and the stories of judgment there, the cows and the wheat and the baker and all those sorts of things. Same sort of dream here, and can be discerned rightly or wrongly. But here's the dream of the geese. This is a dream of mine, and interpret it for me. I have 20 geese here about the house. This is Penelope. And they feed on grains of wheat from the water trough. I love to watch them, but a great eagle with a crooked beak came down from the mountain and broke the necks of them all and killed them. So the whole 20 lay dead about the house, but he soared high in the bright air. Then I began to weep, that was in my dream, and cried out aloud, and around me gathered the fair-haired Achaean women as I cried out, soaring for my geese, killed by my eagle. But then he came back and perched on the hut of the gabled roof. He now had a human voice and spoke aloud to me, do not fear, O daughter of far-famed Icarius. This is no dream, but a blessing as real as day. You will see it done. The geese are the suitors, and I, the eagle, have been a bird of portent, but now I am your own husband come home, and I shall inflict shameless destruction on all the suitors. So he spoke. So what does this dream mean? Well, the dream interpreted itself, but she doesn't believe it. Like the human voice came in and said, it's Odysseus, and I'm going to do this. And now she asks Odysseus, what is the voice from the dream? What does this actually mean? It's a little bit. So here it speaks not to just the distrust of Penelope, but the trauma of Penelope. The trauma is so deep that when the reality is in front of her, she can't see it, can't accept it, can't believe that Odysseus could come home. How come? I'm not a psychologist. My understanding of psychology is that when you're in a state of extreme depression, you don't want to get your hopes up. Because if you get your hopes up, you know that you can go back down there. And if your hopes up, go down further, you can't deal with the possibility of shattered hopes. So you don't even want to entertain it. The dream was unambiguous. Not only there's the dream, but the voice within the dream about what the dream meant. So she asks him what it means. And what does he say? Odysseus, lady, it's impossible to read this dream and avoid it by turning another way, since Odysseus himself has told you its meaning and how it will end. The suitor's doom is evident for one and all. Not one will avoid his death and destruction. And she responds to this with this answer. My friend, dreams are things hard to interpret, hopeless to puzzle out. And people find that not all of them end in anything. There are two gates through which the insubstantial dreams issue. One pair of gates is of horn, another of ivory. Those of the dreams which issue through the gate of sawn ivory, these are deceptive dreams. Their message is never accomplished. Now I want you to remember this passage and the two gates from which dreams issue, because when we come to Virgil in his Aeneid, he will place this at the exit of the underworld. When Aeneas arises from the underworld with a vision for the future, this passage will be used by him there. He takes it from here and puts it there. But they're different. Not all dreams come to fulfillment. Some are false. Some, however, are true. She doesn't trust him. She doesn't believe that it's so. But those that come into the portal through the gates of polished horn accomplish the truth for any mortal who sees them. I do not think that this strange dream that I had came to me through this gate. My son and I would be glad if it did so. And put it away your heart, this other thing I tell you, the day will be an evil day of evil name, which will take me away from the house of Odysseus. For now I will set up a contest. Those axes which in this palace he used to set up in order so that 12 in all they stood in a row. Now think about this. You know how axes are with the wooden handle, and they have the axe head that sticks in it with the metal on either side, and there's a hole through it, and you cast the metal. Do you know what an axe looks like? Like, you know what I mean, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you put them up in a row at a distance between them, and he would shoot the arrow through the holes in the axe handles. Now to do this, you have to string the bow and shoot the arrow through so straight at such speed that it doesn't dip at all and hit the axe handle and not get through it. So you have to be accurate, and you have to pull it so hard that it shoots so fast that it gets through all 12. This is an impossible feat, but Odysseus used to do it. And this is the contest of the bow. This is the man I will marry. The man I will marry is the one who's able to string Odysseus's old bow and shoot an arrow through the axe handles just like he did. That's the man I will marry. There's the test. The one who takes the bow in his hand, strings it with the greatest ease, sends an arrow clean through all 12 axes, shall be the one I will go away, forsaking this house where I was a bride, a lovely place and full of good living. I think that even in my dreams, I shall never forget it. And resourceful Odysseus says, okay, don't put off that contest any longer, because I can do that. Of course. Do not put off this contest in your house any longer. Before these people can handle the well-wrought bow and manage to hook the string and bend it and send a shaft through the iron, Odysseus of the many designs will be back here with you. Doesn't believe him, at any rate. So, stage is set for the contest of the bow. And the contest of the bow will be the moment in the drama when an apocalypse happens. Now comes the apocalypse. Calypso had hidden everything. Odysseus has come back disguised as a beggar. Nobody knows who he is. But now comes the moment of revelation. The light will come out from the shadow, and the light will strike down the dark suitors all around them. That will be the moment of revelation. Now, so it is a sort of homecoming, but it's more than a homecoming. It's a moment when Odysseus will take vengeance on the suitors. So not only will Odysseus reveal himself for who he is, but then he will also execute justice as the man who he is. So his deed will reveal himself, and then his actions will execute the justice on the suitors. I'll pick it up next time, and we'll deal with the slaughter of the suitors and what it signifies, and then we'll move on. So please read ahead. We'll look at Sophocles' Oedipus the King. Just start the reading on that, and I'll introduce it next time, okay? I'll see you then. Okay?